Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. As always, my name is Cory, and this is breaking into my top 15 favorite board games of all time now. We are going through games number 15 down to number 11 today, just outside of my top 10 favorite board games of all time, so these are getting really exciting to talk about. And as always, if you like the content you see here on the channel, consider subscribing. We would really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, and my number 15 game actually dropped 10 places from last year, was number 5 last year, dropping down just 10 places, still making my top 15 favorite board games of all time, so still a fantastic game. I really urge people to, if they're going to get this game, to buy the Essential Edition and possibly get the expansion with it as well. The expansion is called Tuscany. Well, this game is called Viticulture. So in Viticulture, it is a wine making, wine processing, running your own vineyard style game. A lot of fun. It really puts you in the seat, in the driver's seat of becoming like a vineyard owner. You are processing wine, you're gathering the grapes from the fields, crushing the grapes, putting them in the cellar to age the wine, and then bottling up the wine and selling it out to consumers who want your wine. This theme just really pours through. Everything you're doing feels like you're running your own vineyard, making your own wine, selling your wine to consumers. The fun in this game is that you have different seasons, especially with the Tuscany expansion. You have 4 different seasons that you can place workers in. You have spring, summer, fall, and winter. As you're choosing to take actions in the different seasons, you can choose when to stop doing actions in that particular season and save your remaining workers for later seasons in the game. If you spend all of your workers in the spring season, you won't have any workers left for summer or fall and into winter. So you want to make sure that you're not using all your workers in 1 or 2 of the seasons. You really want to take a look at the future actions that you can do and only use absolutely what's necessary in each of the seasons in order for you to get the best possible results out of your rounds in the game. If you like winemaking or wine producing as a theme, if you like really nice medium weight worker placement style games, both of these things really sing in this game and really do a great job. So that is Viticulture. Okay, and my number 14 favorite game dropped 8 places from last year, but is still holding strong in my top 15, just like Viticulture in the previous number here. This is Brass Birmingham. I do own Brass Lancashire and Brass Birmingham. Birmingham is kind of the new 2.0 second edition reiteration of the original Lancashire game. I really enjoy both. This year's list, Birmingham made it over Lancashire, but both games are very similar. Birmingham just kind of etches it out a little bit for having just some additional strategy options to the overall gameplay itself. In Brass Birmingham, you are trying to use cards out of your hand one at a time to build different industries and different cities around the board. You're trying to connect the cities either via railway or canal tokens to try to connect your inner workings the best you can. Money is very tight in this game, so you are kind of forced into taking loans quite often to get the actions done that you need to get and to build out these industries. As you're building out the industries and upgrading them to the higher and higher level buildings, those will generate more victory points for you throughout the game. There's 2 separate rounds to the game, one scoring round at the halfway point and another scoring round at the end of the game. So 2 different scoring opportunities based on how well you built out your industry network versus your opponents. Very tight game. Each city can only hold 2 to 3 different industries at a time. So once that industry slot is taken up in a particular city, nobody else can go there. You are blocking that spot from those players. Some of the buildings you have in this game are things such as coal mines and ironworks and different industries like that, and they work in various ways. You've got this really cool market where the demand and the supply for these different units go up and go down. You can build a coal mine on the board to produce coal for you, but other people can utilize that coal for their own benefit. If they're connected to your network, they can then ship the coal from your coal mine to use in the construction of their buildings, so they can essentially steal the coal from you. But But why that's also good for the person who produced that coal mine is that once all the coal is depleted out of it, you get to flip that tile and get income for the rest of the game and get victory points as well. So it's not a bad thing to be able to deplete your tiles to flip them over to their other side. There's also iron on the board that produces iron as a resource, and that works in a little bit different way as well. But there's just so many inner workings to this game that it's just fun every time you play it. Stealing resources from one another or borrowing for the time being from the bank and getting loans, and it's just everything's so tight. And you know, one wrong step can really put you down the wrong path for the rest of the game. But that's what makes this game so much fun and makes me want to come back for it over and over again to try to do better than I did the last time. Very similar to on one of my earlier lists with Terra Mystica, this game is almost just as tight as that game and very punishing if you're not making the right decisions. But like I said, that's what keeps me coming back for more. So that is Brass Birmingham. Okay, and my number 13 game is brand new to the list. It is a 2-player only game, brand new to the list, debuting at number 13. This just really surprised me, surprised the heck out of me. From the very first play on, I've just enjoyed it every single time I've played it. Most of my friends really enjoy it. I know John and I from Talking Cardboard, him and I play this game all the time together, and this game is Skulk Hollow. In Skulk Hollow, the reason why it makes this game so much fun is, like I said, it's 1v1, one person versus the other person, but each side feels so completely different. One player takes on the role of a guardian, like this big behemoth guardian that's trudging around the board and going really slow, but has these very powerful actions, and the other player takes on the role of the Foxen Heroes. And the Foxen Heroes has these different heroes that you can bring to the board to try to jump onto the guardian to try to defeat the guardian. Each guardian, there's several different guardians in this game. Each guardian has a different win condition. So that feels very variable every single time you play, very different. The win conditions change every time. And what's really cool about the Guardian player is that you have multiple different special ability actions that you can do depending on how many different limbs you've got. Like the head or the tentacles or the arms or the feet can do different actions for you. But what's neat about the other side, the other player, the Foxen hero, you've got like archers and these mercenaries, and you're trying to jump onto the Guardian to try to take out one of the limbs, because if you can defeat, let's say, cut off the Guardian's arm or cut off one of his feet, you take away that special ability from the Guardian player. So you are inherently weakening their actions and making them have a tougher and tougher chance of defeating you. All in the while, they're trying to go after their own specific goal that's completely asymmetrical, and your main job as the Foxen Heroes is just to try to take down that behemoth of a character. Just try to defeat that character any way you can, multiple hit points like a big boss battle. But those are all the things that make this game really fun. If you enjoy 2-player games or the asymmetrical style game, back and forth, different variability gameplay every time, then this game would definitely be for you. That is Skulk Hollow. All right, and my number 12 game dropped 8 places from last year, but just one of my all-time favorite Stefan Feld games ever created. I love my Euro games. I love my Stefan Feld games, as you all know if you are frequent watchers of the channel. But this game, I know it's getting a re-implementation, like a second edition coming this year, and I believe they're going to call it Amsterdam or something like that. But this game is Bruges. Bruges, I've got the City on the Zwin expansion as well, which definitely adds a lot to the game, and I would definitely recommend playing this game with the City on the Zwin expansion, the only expansion for this game, but the base game is just great as well. What I love most about Bruges is you've got cards that have multiple actions on each card, so multi-use cards. Really, really love that mechanism in any game I play, and this game just does it so well. You are getting points in various ways, trying to extend your rivers to get you statues, to build up your little town in front of you, and the cards have multi-uses. Like I said, you can do everything from get rid of threats, because there are some impeding threats that will be threatening you throughout the game, that if the threat builds up enough, it'll do something to dramatic effect, a very negative effect that you don't want. So you can get rid of cards to get rid of those threats for victory points. You can turn one of the cards from your hand over face down onto the table, and that turns it into a house for you. And each house at the end of the game gives you 1 point that you build. Those houses don't just give you the 1 point, but it also allows you to play a person from your hand, because the card can act as a person as well. You can play that person into the house that gives you a special ability for the rest of the game. The person costs money to hire them to place them in the house, but once they're there, they stay there for the rest of the game. Unless one of those previous threats I had mentioned happens and kicks them out of the house or burns down the house or what have you. But you get that special ability as long as they're staying in that house for the rest of the game. You can discard cards to get you money, and you have a set of 5 cards in your hand, and when you use 4 of them, only 4 of them, the round is over. But every single one of the cards you want to do, 2 or 3 or 4 different actions with each and every card, but you can only choose to do 1 action with that card. And like I said, there's like 5 or 6 different actions you can do with every card. Each one of the actions is just so great, but you are forced to just choose to do 1 action with that card. And that decision making you have with what action to use on the card at each specific moment throughout the game is just so tough decision-wise. It's such tough decisions. This game really makes you think, and yeah, that's why I keep coming back to it. You get a new hand of cards at the beginning of every round, so there's some tactical elements to that with like, what am I going to do with my new hand of cards that's completely different than the last round hand of cards that I had? So that adds a lot of, re-strategizing and rethinking at the beginning of every round. So that is Bruges. Okay, and my number 11 game is brand new to the list and just missed my top 10 favorite games of all time, barely. It's debuting at number 11, so a really, really high debut. I think it's like my second highest new game that's on the list, that's debuting the highest on the list, so that is just saying a lot about it all in itself. And this game is Rurik Dawn of Kiev. In Rurik Dawn of Kiev, there's just so many things going on, but the gist of it is you're trying to do the best you can in these different goals throughout the game, both private card goals, you've got some private goals and some public goals, such as the area control and the different things that I mentioned a little bit earlier, that if you can do that better than your opponents, you score more victory points for those goals, and ultimately at the end of the game, you total up everything, and whoever has the most points wins. But the really cool thing in this game is there is a separate action selection board. So you've got the main board with all the different regions that you're vying for control over, but that separate action selection board is just so neat how it works. So basically the gist of the way this action selection board works is that each player has a grouping of these influencers or these workers that have different numbers, numbered stickers on them, and depending on what number they are, that tells you the strength of that worker. So the higher the number of the worker, the better strength it has in choosing these actions or selecting these actions on that separate board. What's really neat about this game, really cool and just really sung well with me, is how you strategize with placing those influencers onto the different tracks to get the action you need. Like I said, the higher the number worker, the stronger they are. So if you go on a particular action column, let's say for movement, because you really need to move your workers to another region, you could place your level 3 or 4 or maybe your level 5 worker onto that track, bumping everybody else down. So you know for sure that you are getting the best, strongest action out of that movement action. Because the further you get pushed down that column for that action, the worse the action gets. But the higher up you are, the better it is. It's just so much better if you're on the top of one of those tracks. The other twist to that though is that you then, after everybody places all of their workers, you trigger those workers in ascending order. So all the ones, in player turn order, all the ones get to pull off their worker and do that action, and then the 2s, and then the 3s, then the 4s, and then the 5s. So you also not only have to use those, your workers in various ways to bump people around on these tracks, but you then have to keep in mind that the lower the number workers are, those will actually happen first out on the main board. So there's kind of some push-pull and some strategizing with when things will trigger for which actions, either for movement or attacking or taxing a region or all these different things, and you just have to keep that in mind. it can be very like an analysis paralysis prone game with all these decisions you're making. So that can kind of drag the game down a little bit if you play with players that are really thinking out each and every turn to its fullest. If they take extra time, this game could drag on a little bit. But with the sweet spot of player count in this game, or if you are all familiar with the game and you're really moving along at a nice clip, this game just really sings, really plays smoothly. And the one other thing I wanted to mention here, I know it's kind of a long explanation, I'm just kind of gushing about this game, but it's just that great. I just fell in love with it that much. But the one other thing I wanted to mention is that you can also pay the silver coins on top of the workers. You can kind of pay them off as you're setting them out on these action columns. The reason why that's good is for every 1 silver coin you place on top of a worker before putting it onto an action column, that increases its strength by 1. But then all of the silver coins go away before the actions are carried out. So then you're left with that lower numbered worker to trigger that action earlier in the round. So if you wanted to bump somebody down, let's say you needed a level 4 worker to bump everybody else down to get a really good attack action, you could do that with a level 1 worker by putting 3 silver coins on top of it to make it a strength of 4. And then at the end of all of the action placement, all the silver coins then go away. You lose all of them to the bank, but now you're left with that really nice action, that really nice power 4 worker as a number 1. So you can then trigger that attack as a number 1 worker before anybody else gets to take that action. So it's really cool trying to acquire these silver coins to really bump up the power of your workers to then also manipulate those tracks and do various things. And just the back and forth between those two decisions and also the different goals that you're going after, both public goals and private, it just is what makes this game so much fun. And it's been fun every time I've played it. And they have an expansion that I backed that is hopefully coming out later this year as well. I'm just really excited to get more content to this game, to even add more and more variability to it, because I can just see this game staying in my collection for a long, long time. And that is Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. All right, everybody, and that does it for today's list. My games number 15 down to number 11. Finally reaching the top 10 favorite games of all time coming soon. We're doing it in 2 separate segments. Those videos will be coming out a little bit later this week, so definitely check out the channel for that. We are doing the first segment, the number 10 through number 6 game, with a group of 4 of us. It'll be me, John, Nick, and Ryan, and then also Jerch will be joining us for games number 5 down to number 1. So like I said, the top 10 will be done in 2 separate video segments. They'll probably be released a few days apart from one another, but you'll have 4 different opinions from 4 different people for the first segment, and then the 5 of us will be getting together for our top 5 favorite games of all time, where you'll have 5 different sets of top 5 games that you can look forward to and see what we all consider our best board games of all time. So like always, leave comments below with your favorite games. We'd love to see what else you guys are playing out there, and if you have some similar interests or different interests or some games we haven't tried before, I'd love to hear from you. And as always, if you like the content here on the channel, consider subscribing. We would really appreciate it. We always really appreciate it. And until next time, you all have a great day.